Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast, the show that helps everyday people build real financial stability, starting from wherever you are. Whether you're working your way out of debt or just starting to save, we're here to help you grow your net wealth to your first big wealth milestone. Each episode, we break down the mindset shifts, practical tools, and real-life actions that can transform your financial future. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's get to work building your net wealth nest. Welcome to Net Wealth Nest Podcast. I'm your host, Jim LaBeouf, and welcome to another episode where we help you build your financial stability and grow your net wealth. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about needs versus wants and how to help you identify when a want is worth spending some money on, as well as identify when a want is not a need, even though you might think it is. We're going to start off with what the true difference between a need and a want is. And really, what you want to think about are what are the things that you need to keep you alive? And those are your needs. Think of things like your food, your housing, transportation to get to your job, to make your living. Those three things right there are the big three that most people think about when they think of needs. Other things that you might need to think about are going to be things like maybe you need medical insurance because you have to go to the doctor relatively frequently. Maybe you need health insurance or medical insurance because you have prescriptions that you have to take. Those are going to be needs. Other things might be for other people in your family. If you have a spouse or kids, they might have different things that they need as well. The problem is when most people think about needs, they start throwing in things that they need to have that don't necessarily meet the qualifications that we're talking about here. And those are what actually fall into the want bucket. What you need to figure out are what are the things that you actually need and need to survive, whether it be yourself, your family, or if you have pets or any of those types of things. And what are the things that you actually don't need? And how do you make sure that you're not blurring the line between the two of them and ensuring that you're acting fiscally responsible in your life to help you build that wealth long term? And so again, we've talked about a couple of the key things. Let's talk about some wants that flow in there. Many people think about entertainment in their wants. And while the internet is probably a need in most households to just function on a daily basis, all the other things that come attached with it might not be. Many people buy a high-end cell phone or a high-end computer or buy the fastest internet that they can get when they might not need that. Another thing to look at is your entertainment and how you're getting it. Are you buying a bunch of streaming services because you need to catch up on the latest and greatest show? Those types of things could qualify as needs. Now, when we talk about wants, one thing is really important to think about. I'm not asking you to be a miser and not spend any money on any of your wants. I'm asking you to really start to think about what are your wants and how do they fit in with your needs, and what can you actually afford, and what do you actually care about, which is probably the most important piece. So if you, for example, really like catching up on shows or have favorite shows that you want to watch, it might be okay to have that streaming service to make that happen. But that might mean actually making a decision on something else that you might not care as much about and cutting that out of your budget. At least until you get to the point where you're sufficient and you're not overspending what your budget is. So I'll use the example of maybe you like to go out to eat with your friends. And this is a tradition where you and your friends go out to eat maybe every week or every other week as an example. But you're also spending, let's just say 3 or 4 subscription services. So maybe $50 a month on a handful of different subscription services. And you're spending $50 to $60 every time you go out to eat. And so if you bucket those all into entertainment, you could very easily see where if you were only going to spend maybe, let's just say $200 a month on entertainment, if you go out to eat each of those times and you're spending that, you're $50 or $60 over your budget just by that. And those are both wants. And so now what we need to do is we need to take a look at that and we need to go, okay, what's more important to me? Is it more important to go out with my friends and spend time with them and go out to eat each week? Or is it more important for me to get caught up on the shows? And neither answer is wrong, but you're probably in a situation if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or if you've got debt or you're putting money on credit cards and you're not keeping under your income, where you need to start to make some of those decisions and say, you know what, it's more important for me and my friends to hang out and for me to get that socialization with them once a week than it is to have Netflix and Hulu or Disney Plus, or whatever it might be. So those are, if I'm going to make an educated decision on what wants I'm going to keep and what wants I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to get rid of all those subscriptions and I'm going to stick with my friends. The other thing that might go into that, if we're using the same example, is what other wants are you doing? Do you go out and shop as well for new clothing every couple of weeks? We're not keeping up with our budget. We're overspending. And I need to make another decision. Again, is it more important to go out with my friends and hang out with them or get new clothes or new shoes or a new whatever every few weeks? New hoodie, right? Let's just say I'm going out and spending $50 or $100 on a hoodie. That's not great usage of my money that I'm using for my wants if going out with my friends is important to me. If I'd rather have the hoodie, then maybe I should buy the hoodie. But I might be in a situation where I'm not able to do both. And again, it's about making decisions on what you want to do. Here's the thing that you need to understand. The second point of this video is everything that you consume is trying to get you to buy something, right? So like when you're on social media or you watch TV or you're listening to the radio or even Spotify or Pandora, there's a reason that, especially like the free versions of some of these things, we'll use Pandora as an example. The free version has ads. The whole point of an ad is to get you interested in buying something and get you to spend your money. And you're constantly bombarded with these things day in and day out, whether it be flicking through Instagram or TikTok or any of that, watching a TV program on TV at night, or even the news for that matter. There's always commercial breaks, right? And so the intent is just to sell you more stuff. And so trying to build a wall up around that and realizing that mindset of every type of advertisement that is out there is trying to get you to part ways with your hard-earned cash. And so just understanding and questioning that, or even when you see like influencers and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this, or I'm on this new type of diet, or I'm doing this, and here's all the things I needed. Here's the link to my Amazon affiliate. Go on and buy all these things. Like they are getting paid by that. So they want you to spend money so that they get paid money. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But just realizing that all those things are putting in your mind, this will make my life better, or this will do that, or this will do that. And while some of those things might, if you're in a position where that is detrimental to your financial stability, it is not going to make your life better. You need to figure out how to get your financial stability in line and build that foundation and build that wealth so that you can buy those things in the future. But right now, if you're living that paycheck to paycheck, or again, if you're putting money on credit cards just to survive for a month, you are not in a good position financially, and buying things like that and being willed by those advertisements is going to hurt you long-term in what your goals are to get out of this cycle and to really build your wealth going forward. The other thing to think about with your needs and your wants is those change like the seasons of your life change. So if you're single right now and living in an apartment or whatever, like your needs are much different than somebody that might own a home, or somebody that has a family, or even somebody that might have pets. There are needs that are added in, and those might whittle away at some of the wants you have. And so what you find a lot of times, and you see this, and there's lots of memes out there and all these things, but like a lot of times when people first have kids, they all of a sudden kind of disappear from their friend circles. They don't go out as much, all these things. And part of that is, especially if it's a baby, this is a lot of responsibility. You're sleeping less, you're figuring out how to take care of this child and do all these things. But there's also a part of it that there is a financial obligation behind that. And now that person, when they have a child, they've changed where their mindset is and what their financial needs are to protect that child, whether it be stability, maybe it's childcare, maybe it's specific medical stability for that child. Lots of different things. There's, of course, just the normal stuff. There's the diapers and the toys and the time and effort and investment brought into that person's life because of that child. So understand that as the seasons of your life changes, so will your needs and your wants. And that might even just happen, maybe something is not as dramatic as like a child happening in your life, but it could be as you get older. One of the things for me is I love to go out with my friends, but as I got older, It was less about going out to the bar and dropping money on drinks and food and all that. And it became more of having great quality time spent with those individuals. But a lot of the times it started to become just hanging out or having a barbecue or having drinks after work. And like I said, a lot of times it stopped being going out and doing those things till midnight or 1 or 2 a.m. And it became more about just having great conversation and doing that. And that was just as I got older. That was just a season of life that kind of disappeared for me and moved into a new season of life. And so there's just different things that happen to you as you go through the course of growing up and getting older. And those will shift those seasons for you and also start to do different things to what you define as a need and what you define as a want. And so the last couple of topics here before we close it out for the day, we'll talk a little bit about how those wants can negatively impact you a little bit and what to watch out for. And so one of the things to watch out for is how wants can create future needs. And most people, when you say that, they're like, wait, what? That makes no sense. Why would a want create a need? And where people fall into the trap is they let their wants create debt. And that debt becomes a need to keep them to survive, to not ruin their credit, to open up their future for them if they want to buy something in the future, maybe like a house as an example. And you see this a lot with people that buy things that they might not need, whether it be clothing, electronics, much more expensive car than what they should be looking at. And they are struggling because now all of a sudden the payments on that credit card or that loan on the car become high and take up a lot of their weekly paycheck or their biweekly or monthly paycheck, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they're stuck in this where they can't move. They're trapped a little bit, not only in their job and making sure that they make enough money, but now they have a need to pay off this loan. And so that want of, we'll use the car as an example, buying a car that gives you a $200 or $300 monthly payment versus what the average is now, $600 or sometimes even $700 payment. Now you're forced to pay that $700, $200, $300, $400 more a month than maybe a much more economic vehicle would have cost you. And especially if you use that car to get to work, like you need that. You have to pay that bill. You do not want that car repossessed because then how do you get around and what do you do? Not only is it going to take your mode of transportation away and potentially impact you from getting to work, but also it's going to destroy parts of your credit. And again, that's going to hurt you in the future when there is a specific need that you want to address. Another red flag and mindset piece to be aware of it is around the scarcity piece. And this kind of goes back to the advertising that we just talked about a little bit ago, but advertising, when it does a really good job, gives you that scarcity feeling of, if I don't get this, I'm not going to be able to do whatever, or I'm not going to be happy, or I'm not going to look successful. And it gives you that scarcity of, I need to have this, otherwise I'm not going to be living my fullest life. And typically, that's just not true. More often than not, those advertisers are really trying to put out that scarcity mindset in you and pull that out of you to separate you from your hard-earned dollars. And what I would challenge you is just think about that when you see these ads and you get that feeling of, oh my gosh, that's really cool. Or, oh, that would make my life so much better. If I had this, it would make this easier and I could do this and that and the other thing. Would it though? And we'll go back to the car payment. If you're using your car primarily to get to and from work, and assuming that the $700 a month payment and the $300 a month payment both do that, and they're both reliable vehicles, one just might look much nicer. Maybe it has leather interior. Maybe it's special paint. Maybe it's just a cooler car. But if both get you to work, does having that cooler car make your life that much better if its primary job is to get you to your job so that you can make money to, again, stabilize your financial picture? And I'd hard press you to ask that question around a lot of the things you do. And that will help wipe away some of those wants where you're like, does this really impact me long term over and over again? And if it doesn't, don't buy it. Stay away and understand that when you see those advertisements and you get that ping of emotion where you're like, oh, I want this. And we all get it, myself included. There are tons of things where I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to have. That would make my life better. Even things around my health sometimes. I'm like, oh, if I did this, I would eat better. If I had this, this is going to make my health better. It's not always the case. And so it's really important to narrow in and understand how your brain is reacting to that and the emotional response that you're having. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you with today is talking a little bit about your future self. And so what I want us to realize is every dollar that you spend today is worth more dollars in the future, assuming that instead of spending that dollar, you would have invested it. And it varies depending on your age and what you invested in and how long it is there for. But what I want you to understand is every dollar you spend today will be worth more if you decide not to spend it and invest it instead. And having that mindset is really important because that will help you build a very stable foundation in your financial life, and it will put you on the path to being very wealthy if you can mitigate all those wants that really aren't making your life better, aren't making you happier, are just the moment and the emotion. If you can push those away, keep focused on your needs, be very strategic on how you budget for your needs, do the wants that really matter to you, and then everything else, all that extra cash goes to your investments. You will build a wealthy life. You will be able to do things that other people will not be able to do because they're not willing to live how you are now. And it's one of my favorite statements is if you're willing to live differently than most people are now, you will live differently than most people do in the future. And all that means is if you're willing to sacrifice some of those emotional moments where you want this or that, but realize it's not the best way to utilize my money, and you invest that, and as that money grows, you will be able to do things in the future that others will not be able to do. You'll be able to take those cool vacations. You'll be able to be stable and not live paycheck to paycheck anymore, and not worry about your credit score, and not worry about where the next check is coming from, or where am I going to live, or am I going to be able to cover my bills? All of that will disappear. And I am living proof of that. I was once in that paycheck to paycheck cycle, massively in debt, and broke away from that and understand that I had to curb my emotions and my emotional spending and my want spending. And it's put me in a position, and my family in a position to live a much better life and be very stable in what we do. I hope this is really beneficial for you, talking about these needs and wants. Please, any questions you have, drop them in the comments on either our YouTube channel or go ahead and leave a review on our podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Again, your questions help us create future content for you. We want to answer your questions, and we want to help you build that financial stability, that bedrock, and build your net wealth. Thanks again for joining today. My name's Jim. Bye, everybody. Net Wealth Nest LLC and Podcast is an educational platform committed to providing resources and information to empower individuals on their financial journey. Please note, we do not provide financial, tax, or investment advice. All financial decisions should be made in consultation with a qualified professional who understands your unique circumstances. Seeking personalized advice is a smart and necessary step before making any major financial commitments. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Net Wealth Nest, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We read every comment, and they help us improve and guide what topics we dive into next. And hey, if something you heard today resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, your barber, your barista, even a stranger in line. You never know who might need this message. Remember, building net wealth is a journey, but you don't have to do it alone. Stick with us, and together, let's grow your net wealth nest.